Welcome to Storm Tracker, your eye on the storm of your Carolina Hurricanes, and your home for the best insight and analysis to keep you totally informed on what's happening with the Canes. Whether it's the latest news on the ice or off the ice, we've got you covered. Now let's begin. Here's your host, Tom Ray.
Well, several Carolina Hurricanes prospects had outstanding years in 25-26, but a select group stood out with their development and overall growth. In addition, a number of exciting new prospects joined the organization this summer. So who were those prospects that took a major step forward in 25-26? Who were the steals in the 26th draft for the Canes? And were there any players that really excelled in this year's Hurricanes development camp? Joining me to break it all down with his top 10 prospects in the Carolina Hurricanes system and a whole lot more, I'm delighted to welcome in from Canes Prospects and the co-host of Developing Hurricanes podcast, Nick Bass. Howdy, Nick.
Hello. How we doing?
Great. It's great to have you back with us to talk about the Carolina Hurricanes prospects. How's your summer going?
It's not bad. Just chugging along through schoolwork and stuff, and getting ready to go back.
Now you've got what? One more year left?
I'll graduate in December.
Ah, fantastic! Well, congrats to you on that, Nick. And as always, we're delighted to have you in here talking Canes prospects on Storm Tracker. So let's kick it off with the top 10 prospects in the Canes system. I know you had an interesting discussion with Matt Soma on this, and I think you both agreed on the same players. So let's get right into it. So checking in at number 10, one of the hulking D-men prospects that you highlighted during the season in our top 5 prospects a number of times, certainly having an outstanding year, was Kurban Limatov. And of course, just 19 years old, Limatov checks in at 6'3" and almost 200 pounds. Third rounder, number 67 and 25. He's a guy that, boy, oh boy, he's done some good work this year. How about Kurban?
Yeah, he looked really good overall. His play style is still a little funky to kind of watch just because it's not like a lot of other defensemen that we have. But it's really enjoyable to watch. It's definitely one of the more fun defensemen that we have in the system. And it was a really big enjoyment to get to watch him at development camp. He was really enjoyable and endeared himself to a lot of fans who really hadn't seen him play before, just because he has unbelievable skating and a really nice, fun play style to watch. So, yeah, he might move up this year, kind of depending on how it goes. But right now he's just kind of sticking around at 10 until I see it at a higher level than junior.
Yeah, so he was in the MHL. Yeah, so that's right. He would be the equivalent of junior in North America. What did you see specifically with Kurban this year that really jumped out at you in terms of his growth?
It's mainly just continuing defensive development, making sure that he's not letting anything past him, which he can because of his skating base. And then offensively, I would like to see him kind of rein in some of the more chaotic stuff where he's jumping in on everything. But he did a very good job of just moving in transition, being able to be a connector, playmaker, just doing everything correctly.
Yeah, and he scored 12 goals, so he's definitely able to put the puck in the net as well. So a defenseman that I think played alongside him at different times, and he's another big hulking blue liner, somebody we've talked a lot about, is Timur Kol. Also just 19 years old. He played 8 games in the KHL this year, so that's kind of cool. 6'4", 207, bigger, but drafted later in the 6th round. And Darren York said this about him. He said he's great defensively, similar to how we were describing Badinka. You have to be able to play fast, defend fast, and being able to do that is what he's done this season. That's what he was talking about last year. So he was quite impressed with Timur. What do you see?
Yeah, very much so close to a pro right now in terms of ability. He defends at a really nice level. Offense is pretty good. He was the power play quarterback last year in the MHL, and his KHL showings gave a lot of promise into what he can be at the pro level. He just moves really well. He's decently physical, defends at a good rate, and has some offensive abilities. So Yeah, Cole was really solid this year. He was at dev camp. He looked really solid, just a really solid overall defenseman.
And what do you think he needs to work on to get to the next step before he can come over to North America?
Honestly, I don't really think there's a ton. I think it's just trying to continue developing what already makes him successful in junior and just seeing if how that translates to pro.
Yeah, I know, both him and Kurban Limatov, two big defensemen that look like they have a lot of promise for us. So that's exciting stuff. Now we're going to go to the other side of the spectrum here. And no surprise, in at number 8, talked a lot about this guy, one of your short kings, and that's Justin Poirier. Of course, he played with Maine this year. He's heading off to Penn State. He had a tremendous start. He had I think a hat trick to kick off his season. He had 18 goals in 27 games. And he's a guy that just tore up junior, as you recall, with Drakkar, 210 points in 188 games. He's not big at 5'9", but boy, he's a guy that he's exciting.
Yeah, he's incredibly fun to watch. Offensively, it's just an unbelievable shot, and he has the ability to get to the dirty areas, even though he's not the biggest player in the world. Skating's a little funky, but he offsets it really nicely with the rest of his abilities. And his first year at Maine, even though he underwent hip surgery, I was still very impressed of what he showed. And Penn State's going to be a really fun watch this year, and I'm really interested to see how that gets along and see how him being on a team with more talent goes, because I think his point total might continue to go up.
Well, it's interesting. Penn State is becoming a go-to, isn't it?
I mean, they just have a ton of NIL money mainly. The Pagulas who run the Sabres mainly run the NIL, and their coach is a really solid guy, and they've had good success recruiting. So,
yeah, they sure have. Of course, Charlie Serrato was in Penn State, and of course, McKenna was as well. So you've got definitely a strong pedigree there. That's exciting.
There's also Ryder Fedorov going there next year as well.
Yes, I was going to mention Ryder Fedorov is going there. So two guys from the Canes side heading. So that's kind of fun. Yeah, I think Poirier, do you think, there's a lot of concern with smaller players? The Canes are proving that a little bit not the case. What do you think the future looks like right now for Justin Poirier?
I think if he has another really good year at Penn State, I think there's a non-zero chance he'll turn pro after this year, would be my guess, but I've been wrong.
Well, he's definitely a player that's got incredible skill. That injury was a tough thing for him because he did, as I mentioned, got off to such a great start. So we'll keep an eye on Justin this coming season. Now, let's move on to number 7, a D-man that continues to develop nicely in the Canes system. He looks ready to go to the next step, and I'm talking about Charles-Alexis Legault. We've had a lot of fun talking about Charles in the past. He's a guy that was drafted in the 5th round. He came out of Quinnipiac, that championship team, as you recall, and he's just continued to look, I think, the real deal. What are you thinking about with Charles-Alexis Legault?
Yeah, I think Legault is an unbelievably solid player. He's a guy that would seamlessly fit in on any third pairing in the NHL. He hyper physical, strong skating base, great defensive guy, can definitely anchor your power or penalty kill if you need him to be, but definitely is a great complementary piece to have there. Just it does everything right, and a guy that you always want to have on your team. So if the Canes aren't so deep, he's probably an NHL body right now, but I'm not really going to complain if he gets another really good year in the AHL behind him.
Yeah, he's definitely the way that the Wolves are shaking up this year, he's going to be a key part of that team. And I know that Eric Tulsky had talked a little bit about this with regards to both he and Joel Nystrom saying, hey, these guys are ready to go, but we want them to play. So you can expect they're going to start the season in Chicago. He had a tough injury, though. Like, he was in a situation where he had been called up during that kind of injury situation the Canes had and was really locked in, I think, on the D-core, and then had that tough hand injury, right? And that took him out for a good part of the season. That was a tough blow for him.
Yeah, he was in a really nice spot, getting good time, and went for a punch and just missed.
Yeah, lesson learned. And of course, Joel Nystrom ended up subbing in and doing a nice job as well. So great stuff for Charles-Alexis Legault. And another example, I think, Nick, of the Canes drafting players later on that can play.
Yeah, they've had good success with it in the past, and hopefully they can get some good success with it in these recent drafts as well.
Some of the guys that they've had coming in the last few years. Okay, let's move on to number 6. Recently signed a pro deal, no surprise. He's earmarked for the Wolves this year. That's Charlie Serrato. We just mentioned him a few minutes ago, having played with Penn State. Serrato also a bit of an injury-plagued season, 27 points in 23 games. He's 6 foot 190, so he's a good-sized guy. Second rounder. Here's what Darren York said that I think really was appropriate. He said he's strong on the face-offs, strong two-way game, smart defensively, a lot of skill. He plays exactly the way we want to play. So they really, really like Serrato. And if you recall in the draft, he was a bit of a surprise pick. He wasn't tabbed by any of the kind of draft forecasters to end up in a second-round situation. But he looks like he's ready to go. What are you thinking about with Charlie Serrato?
Yeah, he's really solid. The first AHL game he played, I was really impressed with how he looked. He handled himself really well in the faceoff circle, handled playoff physicality really nicely, got to the front of the net with ease, generated a lot of good chances, and that's kind of just what he is. He's going to do everything you need him to do. He could probably do some PK in the future. I don't know if it'll be next year, but obviously they have a better plan for him. He's probably going to be a top 6 center. He's going to be really solid. He's going to do everything you want. He's going to piss people off. He's going to be physical. He's a perfect center that you want on your team. And I think this AHL season is going to be really telling, because if he has a good AHL season, I wouldn't be shocked to see him make the jump next year after next.
Yeah, and he's just 21 years old, so he's still young enough for sure. And of course, he's kind of taken off in his career later, and I think that's what caught the Canes' attention. With the Wolves, he's going to have a real opportunity. Of course, Ryan Suzuki's gone, and they're also going to be missing some other key players. Noah Philp is gone as well, who was key in the playoff run for the Wolves. So I think Serrato is going to get a real shot, and that's going to be exciting to see, because I think with Spiros Anastas and Dan Price and the crew, they're going to do an outstanding job. And so really excited about what the future holds for Charlie Serrato. And he's in a situation, as you know, too, Nick, and maybe you can talk about this. The Canes at center ice are not particularly deep on the prospect side. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's fine. I think Serrato is a top 9 contributor. I think Ivan Ryabkin could definitely be a top 9 contributor down the middle. Andrei Krutov has played center. I think Wigo Sorensen could probably touch center a few times. Felix Unger Sorum has played center a little bit, and obviously he didn't look spectacular, but he still has the ability to take faceoffs. So I think natural center, yeah, maybe, if you don't count Ryabkin as a natural center, but I think they're going to be fine otherwise.
Okay. I just wondered what your thoughts were, because we haven't seen some top prospects coming in at center. Of course, Ryabkin was, and of course, Serrato, but other than that, not a whole lot of excitement there. Okay, and let's move to a completely different position with number 5. He's our first goalie on the top 10 prospects for the Canes, and not really a surprise to me, Semyon Frolov. He was a third-round pick. The Canes loved him. I think 6'3", 191 pounds for Frolov. And back to Darren York and what he said, he was our top-rated goalie, probably one of the best feet with really athletic side-to-side movement. So they really liked what they saw. I know the goalie crew, and I remember reading this at the time of the draft, were just ecstatic that he was able to be drafted by the Canes. What are you thinking about with Frolov? He had some injuries last year, but what's the deal?
Yeah, he was a second-round pick. He was their first selection in 25. But he was, even with the injury, I was still pretty happy with what I saw. It's mostly a lost year overall, but he got a lot of time in the playoffs and was their main starter down the stretch in the MHL final and looked pretty solid. Yeah, they value goalies that can move quickly. That's kind of their biggest thing, is that they value goalies that have good skating ability within the crease, and that's what Frolov has. The technical ability is really solid. Just has to kind of rein in the aggressiveness that a lot of these Russian goalies have. But other than that, he was really solid this year, and I'm hoping he gets some time in a higher league going forward.
Well, in a small sample size, his numbers were ridiculous. He played 7 games, won 4 of them. He had a 1.83 goals against average and 9.49 save percentage. So he was lights out when he was in there. But yeah, I mean, the Russian goalie factory, we've talked a lot about this in the past. The Canes have really dipped into it, right? And in fact, they signed through Chicago, one of your guys, Igor Velmakin, was signed by Chicago, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that as well. What are your thoughts about Velmakin signing with Chicago?
I think it was mainly just shock because I didn't think the day was ever going to happen. But I am happy he's coming to North America and going to give it a shot. He's not the biggest goalie ever, but he plays very well. Technical ability is really nice. I was happy with what I saw in the KHL when he played there, and in the VHL, he earned the trust at the end of the year to kind of be their starter. So again, I'm a little shocked, but I guess it's just more just like you need depth going forward, and you're going to have some competition in Chicago and Greensboro. So I'm interested to see how he does in North America now.
Now you had a chance to get up close and personal with him at one of the dev camps, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun, and you know it's great because they've got. If you're looking at the goaltending situation right now, of course you've got Pyotr Kochetkov with the big club. Ruslan Kazayev he's been down in, of course, Greensboro, but we could see him in Chicago this year. You've got, of course, Frolov coming, and you've got Velmakin coming to North America. So a lot of Russian goaltenders starting to really take position in the Canes prospect side. So it's great. Okay. Let's move to number 4. This was a bit of a surprise to me, and you caught me kind of off guard with this gentleman. Another big mobile blue liner. He's got all the tools. He had huge progress last year, just 19 years old, and he played in the KHL 37 games, which I know as a teenager is very rare. Talking about Alexander Suryatsky, 6'4". He's still a bit slight at 180, 185. Dauber Prospects said smart defensive player who has decent playmaking potential. Elite Prospects said Suryatsky understands how to mitigate risk defensively. He backtracks ahead of the opposing rush and adopts a conservative positioning to avoid getting beat to the middle. Does that sound about right for Alexander?
Yeah. It shouldn't catch anybody off guard. Me and Matt have been pushing this player unbelievably hard over the past few months just because we have seen a lot with game tape, and we've seen a lot with, people we talk to. He's just unbelievably solid. Obviously it's hard for people to break into the KHL at 18, 19 years old. And He did. He was getting top 4 minutes before the injury. He was getting power play time, penalty kill time. He was getting trust in overtime, and he just looked really solid. His skating base is good. The physicality is there for a defenseman, even though he still has a little bit more weight to gain.
Yes.
Defense is really solid. The offense was breaking through. I really like his ability to quarterback on the power play, even though it didn't show a ton. It shouldn't come as a surprise, in complete honesty. I know it was probably weird to see him over Legault, or maybe just him in the top 5 in general, but he's an unbelievably solid player, and he's one that's definitely going to have a lot more eyes because he's going to get a much more consistently larger role with Medler going into next year, and he's a guy that could probably break into that top 3 rankings without any issue going into next year.
Well, he's another one of these great, huge defensemen was drafted later in the 4th round, 124 in 2024. So he's another player that, again, slipped in the draft. The Canes have a number of them, of course, on the Russian side. I just had not, prior to you starting to talk a lot about him with Matt at the end of the year, I hadn't heard a lot about him. So, and I knew he was still a young man. So it's good stuff. Good. Okay. So we'll keep an eye on Suryatsky. And of course, he's going to have a real opportunity again this year in the KHL. So that's good. So let's move up to number 3, coming on strong after a slow start. I'm talking about Ivan Ryabkin. Ryabkin, of course, started the season with the Wolves, kind of, 4th line, wasn't getting a lot of playing time. They sent him down to Charlottetown in the Quebec Major Junior League. He tore it up. He had 13 goals and 29 assists in just 29 games. He was a beast. And then he came back, and I thought he looked like a different player. In 21 games, he had 4 goals and 5 assists. And in the playoffs, he was really effective. Again, not a big guy, 5'10", but he is 210 pounds, second rounder. What have you seen in terms of the growth of Ivan?
Well, yeah, first up, he's about 185, 190. The elite prospects weight was super out of date.
Okay.
So he's a lot lighter.
Ah,
Yeah, I think the Q just gave him all the offensive confidence back. He figured out what he actually needed to do to be successful in North American Pro, and he did it. Obviously, physicality was there. He was much more disciplined, which was kind of a big thing going forward. He was much more offensively involved. He was being able to connect plays. He was able to make plays. He was looking good in transition. He's doing dirty work around the net. He's getting physical after the play. He's getting physical during the play. He's doing everything right. And he looks much more like a guy who could be a consistent top nine contributor who didn't really still flash that offense in the playoffs, even though he did really well. He just looked like a guy who could compete. And that's definitely something that I'm very excited about moving forward.
well, it was fun because he played on some different lines. He played alongside Noah Philp and Felix Unger Sorum a little bit, but he was also on an all Russia line with Nikita Pavlichev and Viktor Noychev. And in some of the podcasts we did with Spiros Anastas and Dan Price during the playoffs, we were talking about that line, and boy, they were effective. And it was great to see him. He was really driving the play for them in a large number of ways. And one thing I noticed with him, and I don't know if you've seen this as well, but he really sees the ice well. He was finding open players repeatedly and making some great passes. Have you seen that kind of growth in him as well?
Yeah, he's able to do that. It was there from the start. It was just he finally found the confidence to kind of make the plays he wanted to make. So it was good to see.
Darren York said he drives to the net. He can hit you. He can take hits. He can score off the wrist shot, off the one-timer. He can make plays in tight. So clearly he's a guy that he does it all, and he started to show that for sure. Interesting rumor recently, and I wanted to get your take on this one. Jeremy Garrett, who kind of is involved in a lot of information coming out of Russia, suggested that Ivan might be signing with Dynamo Moscow. Thoughts?
It's a rumor. It's a rumor for a reason. I have a differing opinion of a lot of the things that gentleman speaks on because it's just a lot of stuff he rips from Russian media and posts it on Twitter because nobody else does it. But it's a rumor. People need to realize that rumors are rumors. Until anything is confirmed, it's not real. So just everybody's got to pump the brakes. Just stop being so caught up in it. And I know it's the summer and people do it, but
yeah, I'm with you 100%. And frankly, I was a little bit surprised at the rumor itself simply because his role with Chicago is going to go up this year, I think, dramatically. They're looking for players like Ivan to take a step forward. So I was kind of wondering, why would he want to leave now? He's making progress, and he's in a situation in Chicago where, he knows the crew, he's comfortable with the coaching staff, and he's starting to show what he can really do. And this would be a tremendous growth year for him. So kind of not sure. Anyway, good to get your take on that too, Nick. That's great. Okay, we're getting down to the short list here. Let's go to number 2. Now, this is a guy that really turned it around. We talked a lot about him this year. Tough first year as a pro. You mentioned Felix Unger Sorum. He had played a little bit of center. It wasn't really a successful move for him. He went back to the wing last year, and all he did was lead the Wolves in scoring. So that's fantastic. Again, there was something that was interesting, and this I talked about with Spiros a little bit as well. Jack Renzel, the strength and conditioning coach of the Wolves, was really strongly involved with some of the development that took place with Unger Sorum. And he said, you look at when we started the year in October, and the biggest need that we found that was going to help him the most was getting stronger in general. He's much more powerful, stronger and faster now, and you can see that in his game and with his playing style. And that was the big thing that we heard from the coaching staff of the Wolves was, hey, he is much stronger. He's much more involved in the play. Remember, he was a little bit of a thin man that would get pushed around a lot. We talked about that in the past. What have you seen in terms of the great development of Unger Sorum?
Yeah, I think it's another situation where he figured out how to apply his game to North American pro hockey and make it look more seamless. And then obviously he's stronger on the puck, he's stronger off the puck. He's able to handle pressure and physicality a lot easier, which makes it a lot easier for him to play how he wants to play. And I've been consistent in saying that he has an innate ability to control pace with the puck on his stick. He slows it down, he speeds it up, he does whatever he wants. And that's something that the Canes just don't have. So it was very good to see his play style rewarded. And you kind of saw that when it clicks, he is an unbelievably skillful player and probably one of the better forwards on the Wolves, if not the best forward overall.
Well, he's, the thing that always jumps out at me with Unger Sorum is how well he sees the ice. It's incredible. Like, as you said, he controls play. And on the power play, he's magic out there. I don't know how many times we saw him make pinpoint passes that turned into goals. And when he was injured during the playoffs, that was tough for the Wolves. They really missed him. And so this year, again, because there have been a lot of movements with the Wolves, he's gonna take a major role for the Wolves for sure. So what do you think his runway is? Where do you see Unger Sorum going?
I mean, this is a guy that at his peak can be a top 6 power play 1 contributor. So he's an unbelievably skillful winger, and I don't have concerns about size or anything like that. Maybe skating, but it looked fine to me this year.
Yeah.
So at his ceiling, he's somebody that can, be a top contributor on your team. I mean, even if he just kind of hits the middle, he's playing in your top 9 and he's still playing on the power plays. So he's an unbelievably skillful player, but he's got to play in a role with skill players or it's just not going to look right.
Well, the crazy thing is, and we can kind of laugh about this, he's still just 20 years old. I mean, it's insane. We've been talking about Unger Sorum for a while. And of course, when he came over a few years ago for training camp, remember there was a lot of excitement that he generated in camp with his play and surprised a lot of folks coming out of the draft. And he's a guy that, again, I'm like you. I think he's a future Cane. I think he definitely has that in him, and he's continuing to really grow. And I think this was a huge year for him. So kudos to Felix Unger Sorum, and great work by the coaching staff in Chicago. Those guys, they're doing a fantastic job, and I think they did. He's a good example of how they brought him along nicely. So we're down to number 1. And I don't think it's a surprise. We've only talked about him numerous times. That's Bradley Nadeau. What do you got to say about Mr. Nadeau, Nick? I
mean, he's been an NHL player for the past calendar year. He's unbelievably good, unbelievably talented. Now he's killing penalties at a good, decently high rate, doing everything you want him to do. So he's an NHL player. It's kind of...
Well, it's interesting. This year, he had plus 16 this year in 52 games. Last year, he was minus 20. And that was, I think, one of the biggest developmental areas for him. He just turned his game around so strongly in terms of his full 200-foot game. And we heard that from the coaching staff as well quite a bit. And he's a guy that in 12 games with the Canes, he scored 3 goals. So, he showed what he can do up with the Canes as well. Interesting what Eric Tulsky said recently, and there's been a lot of discussion about, there's going to be an opening with the Canes for a while. Seth Jarvis had his surgery, so he's going to be out 4 to 6 months. So he could be out, I guess, until November, December, whatever. And here's what Tulsky said. He said there's a real chance that we end up with sort of an open spot in our lineup for a month or two for a younger player to step in and get an opportunity to show what he can do. Bradley Nadeau absolutely will be in the conversation if we need a call up at the start of the year. I think it would be a good opportunity for him to get some runway. So kind of where you are on this too, Nick, is that Bradley he's ready. In my view, I don't see a need for him to go back to Chicago.
No, but at the same point, it's just kind of where he is. So,
yeah,
state of the game. And I also really want to stress that the only reason why Tulsky said Nadeau is because he was asked specifically about Nadeau.
Sure.
That was I believe it was Eric Cox who asked the question. He specifically said Nadeau. I think people really need to understand that it could be Nadeau, it could be Felix Unger Sorum, hell, it could be Ivan Ryabkin. It could be any of them. It's just, it was specifically about Nadeau.
No, I agree. I think Eric is always very kind of guarded in what he says. He leaves all the decision making in that regard to Rod and his crew. So he's not going to say that Nadeau specifically is going to be the guy that gets it. But of course, Bradley is the guy that's at the top of the list right now. So he should definitely have an excellent opportunity with the Canes. Okay, so that's your top 10 prospects for the Carolina Hurricanes, and quite a group. A number of them we've talked about a lot this year, and I know you've written about them a ton in your Substack as well, Nick. So that's fantastic. One player that's not on the list, and this is kind of interesting, he's a guy we talked about last year a ton, is Nikita Artemonov. What's going on with him?
Just had a really not good year. It was just a ton of bouncing around and just never really found a consistent role. So it is what happens.
Yeah. Is he still playing in the KHL? I mean, I haven't heard much about him. Is he still getting ice time?
Yes, he got decent KHL ice time with Neftakimik last year to end the year. Got some decent run in the playoffs. Was traded from Torpedo to Avto, and then Avto loaned him out to Severstal. So he'll be playing in the KHL with Severstal next year.
Okay. So some real movement with him. He was a player that early on we thought was really going to be a potential Cane.
I still have the same feeling about him being a potential Cane. It's just he had a down year overall. It is what happens. Sometimes prospect development is not linear, so it's just harder.
No, I definitely want to get your thoughts on Nikita, because I know a lot of folks are interested to see what he's up to these days. That's great. So, okay, let's talk about the 26th draft. I know you did a lot of work on this. And of course, we looked at some of the players that the Canes did draft. Their first pick was William Hawkinson. I've talked about him on some other podcasts. He's a guy that checks in, another hulking defenseman. They're all big. These guys, 6'4", 207, second rounder, a guy that, a lot of folks picked him to go much higher. So the Canes, were pretty excited about him. Darren York said he's a player that we've known very well playing in the international events in Sweden, big rangy defenseman that skates well and has nastiness. How do you see him compared to some of these other big defensemen for the Canes?
He's probably the second best pure defensive defenseman. I'm putting Roman Chakrin at one for that, but Hawkinson, he's big, rangy, skates really nicely, can be hyper physical at times. I like the defensive ability. I think the offense has room for growth, and I was seeing some good stuff with his hands, but right now it's just not there. But I was happy to see him sign as well. I don't think that should be a factor or anybody should read too much into it right now, but I definitely think it's good to see him sign that because the Canes obviously have big plans for him.
Well, he played with men last year, right? So playing in the SHL, and so he's going to do that again this year. He'll get a lot of playing time. The Canes like to do that, leave some of these guys to percolate a little bit over in certainly in Sweden and Finland and some other places. So really exciting to see that. I think he's another defenseman that just continues to build the depth of this organization, and an excellent first pick for the Canes. Okay, one of the guys, you mentioned him earlier, slipped way down to number 125, which is well down in the draft. And that's Ryder Fedorov. We mentioned he's going to Penn State. He just had a ridiculous year in the OHL with Ottawa 67s. He won a ton of awards as a rookie. He was incredible. He was CHL goalie of the year. He was OHL goalie of the year. He was an all-star. He was everything. And the deal about him, though, he's not a big goaltender. So he's kind of, looking back at the Cam Ward type goalie, just checking in at 6 foot. So what are you seeing with Ryder Fedorov?
I see a goalie that does the one thing you're supposed to do as a goalie, which is keep the puck out of the net. He's excellent at that. Technique is solid. Feet are really good. Just does whatever he needs to do to keep the puck out of the net. I really liked what I saw at Dev Camp as well, so I'm pretty happy with that. I didn't think the Canes would take him just because he was a CHL goalie on the shorter side, and that's going against their trend over the past years. But I'm very happy with it. I think he's going to be really solid, and I'm interested to see what type of role he gets at Penn State next year.
Yeah, and Darren York is right on with what you're saying. He said he just stops the puck. It doesn't matter that he's a little on the shorter end. The ability to read the game and go side-to-side movements is great. He just had an unbelievable season. So, again, do you think he dropped because of his size?
I would assume so. Size and playing in the CHL, even though there was probably worse goalies that got drafted before him. So I think it was probably just size.
So he could be a real steal. That's exciting. Okay. And another player that they drafted that you kind of had picked as one of the players to watch going into the draft, which is kind of fun. Another short king, Unger Sorum, playing Division II junior last year, kind of a secondary league. It's not one of the top leagues where he was. What did you see in Unger? You had picked him as a guy the Canes should look at.
Yeah, I've had months leading into this. I had another scouting friend who was kind of pushing that he could definitely be seen as somebody the Canes might take, and I didn't really put a lot of stock into it. I thought he was just kind of pushing it because it was a funny name, but then I looked into more as the player, and I was like, yeah, okay, I can kind of see it because he's just a hyper-skilled, decent skating forward, and I think it's a riskier pick for the sole reason that he was drafted out of a league you just do not see players drafted out of because he wanted to stay close to home and it's his hometown team. But he's a really fun player, insanely skilled offensively, and even with people worried about him playing in weaker league, he still goes up to U20, U18 and still looks incredibly good. Not dominates, but definitely does really well at international competitions. So I think it's really solid, and I'm interested to see how he does in Hockey Etten this year, which is third division, but I'm interested to see if he can continue to help lead that hometown team.
Well, it's going to be interesting because, of course, when you're in a situation where you pick someone like he has and they ultimately get drafted by the Canes, it must be pretty exciting for you as well.
It feels nice to know that I have some sort of idea of where they're going. So that is pretty cool, I guess.
Cool. Okay. So, that's the draft. I mean, there were some other players that are interesting, but I thought we'd just cover some of the highlights. Now let's take another minute maybe to talk about the Dev Camp. You've highlighted some of the players in the Dev Camp. Is there anyone else that jumped out at you at Dev Camp?
I think two of the guys from this past draft, Mikey Burchild and Zach Lansard, they are really fun to watch players. Lansard is he feels like a prototypical Hurricane, is super active on the forecheck, will piss you off from time to time, and is a really nice straight line skater. Mikey Burchild just has the inner compete, and he's probably more offensively talented right now, just from a standpoint of hands and shot. So I was really happy to see that. Defensively, it was kind of just Limatov that blew everybody away with just what he was doing. He was in the drills and the skating tests that I saw, he was impressing staff and all that fun stuff. And then in the drills, he was doing everything he wanted to do and didn't really fail at anything. So I think people were just really impressed with that as a whole.
Yeah, well, that's great. And, again, it was a small camp, right? There were only 13 players, I think, at the camp because they didn't bring any of the players from the Chicago Wolves. Obviously, they finished the year late, so I guess they gave them a little bit of a break. So, okay, just a couple of closing comments. One thing I did want to mention is Noel Franzen, of course, is heading to the Wolves this year. What can you tell the folks about Noel Franzen?
He's basically just a taller Dominic Fonsore. He's an unbelievably talented offensive defenseman who skates incredibly well. Defense is still a work in progress, but he's going to be a really fun player to watch overall.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. They're going to have him and, of course, Yoel Nystrom, so a couple of really fine European players as well. Okay, as we wrap up, final question for you, Nick, is who's on your radar for the coming season?
I think a lot for me is going to be Alexander Suryatsky. I really am putting a lot of faith into his development. I think he can probably have a really solid season. I think college hockey is going to be a lot more fun this year. Jaden Perron is going to be fun. Justin Poirier is going to be fun. Mikey Burchild is going to be really fun in Denver. I think it'll just be really cool, and glad there's a lot more diversity with kind of where everybody's playing. So I'm interested to see how this goes.
Yeah, that's definitely some folks we definitely want to keep an eye on. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, we'll be watching closely players like Charlie Serrato and of course Felix Unger Sorum as they continue their development in Chicago. Anyway, great, Nick, as always. Man, it was wonderful to get an update on all these top prospects for the Hurricanes, and we'll look forward to our next opportunity to get together on the Nick Bass Report and hear about all the outstanding things happening with the Canes prospects around the globe.
Yeah, it was fun.
Okay, for those of you who have been watching or listening, of course, Nick and I are very delighted you spent time with us. And if you have comments or anything you'd like to say to Nick, please put those in the comment section. Finally, if you want to be alerted of future episodes of Storm Tracker, please press the subscribe and the bell buttons, and we'll make sure you're made aware just as soon as they're available. As always, Nick and I thank you so much for spending time with us and look forward to getting together with you real soon right here on Storm Tracker.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends for everything with the Canes. You need Storm Tracker.